I wanted to share with you a simple little jig that's easy to make your own lines at home. You can buy these online, but they're not inexpensive, and you can't use whatever wood you want. You have to go by the menu that's available to you. And some of these exotic woods are really expensive, and you can certainly, after tonight, I think you're going to feel, if you've never seen this before, you're going to want to make your own lines. First, before making the line, I'm going to just route a groove for the line. So let's do that. You can do that with hand tools. And what's really interesting is that you can get super fine router bits. I didn't realize they were available that small, but if you go on websites like StuMac, like guitar making suppliers, as some of you have used, you'll find like some incredibly small opportunities for router bits. Also, you can search on places like Amazon. I put a few links up there to 3 different sizes. You can check them out. One is a 1/32. The next one is a 16th, so a 32nd larger, and then a 3/32 diameter cutter. Now, the 1/16 I have in my router here. Let me bring it out. That's a 16th in diameter. So it's equal to this little demo stringing. See that? So we've got our 16th inch diameter there. This one is a 3/32. I like that size for inlaying a line on a larger field. But for small white lines, they really show up and they look quite bright. And actually, you can even go down to a 32nd. This might look a little heavy on a thin like shaker leg. So you'd probably want to go even a little lighter. But that actually could make a nice statement as well. So there's a difference in these 2 bits though. This one is a down cut. So it's got a spiral cutter. Even as small as it is, it's made with that kind of precision. So when it spins, as it's spinning clockwise as you look above, the shearing angle is downward. It's not pulling it up. That's really nice, especially on like veneered tops where you are plunging in after you've done a lot of work and you don't want to see all those fibers come tearing out. And it would be minimal, but still, it's reassuring to have a down cut in cases like that. This little 16th, it was a straight cut. I didn't look for the opportunity to get the other. But the 32nd that I link you to too is also a down cut. So imagine how spirally, it has to be spiraled and cut in only a 32nd thick. So be careful. Use the user's notes on all of these. I don't know if they come with safety guards, but you got to take it easy on those bits. You don't go cranking in. It's a fragile bit. And if you notice, this one that's 3/32 has a 1/8 shank. So that fits fine into a Dremel tool. So if you have a plunge router base for a Dremel tool, which you can get at guitar places like StuMac, they have a really nice one that if you're going to do some intricate inlay, that would accept this 1/8 inch shank. But, you know, in most cases, you've got maybe a 1/4 inch collet in your router. So if that's your situation, you can order a collet adapter that will take you from a 1/4 down to the 1/8. So you can run the 1/8 inch in your 1/4 inch collet on your standard router. So I've also put a link for a couple of those collets, but you can shop around too. You can look, but check that out. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to plunge. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm using this guide collar, and I don't have any specific measurement right here. All I want to do is make a groove. It's really about making the lines tonight. I want to show you that, and we'll see about if it fits and we can glue it in after. But let's go ahead and get in the groove. And we will do that right now. So to do that, we're going to use this bearing. The collar that's in the router, and that's going to bear against this 1/4 inch MDF as our guide. I don't know why I want to say S. And because it's up there and it's going to be a little tipsy, I double stuck a riser block, or sort of like an outrigger, on the other side. So that when that's sitting there on the table, it will be nice and stable. Okay, no wobble. Not that, you know, you'd have to be thinking about it a lot to keep pressure on your right hand so you didn't wobble down. But here, no thinking at all. I like that. I'm good at that. All right, so here we go. We're going to put this in here, and let's move the router for a second. And let's get our, we'll just make it down along this, kind of this ratty side of this piece of cherry. Here's a nice piece of cherry, but because it's a little darker, it should show up the line nicely. We'll see how that goes. I'm gonna step over here. And let's see. I just want to make sure I got enough clearance on my router so I don't hit those. No, I don't. I'm gonna need 2 3/4. Okay, just about. Okay. Okay, that's good. All right, so now let's take our router, and what we're going to do is just get it in position. And as normally we do, we're going to raise it up, then bring it down, plunge. We just touch the surface with the router bit. It just extended. Now I have it locked in that position. It's in plane with this. So now I want to set the depth. I'm just going to go a 1/16 deep. So I'll use this as a spacer, which happens to be a 1/16. So I'm just going to put it right in between the plunge stop. That'll give us a 1/16 inch gap for the plunge stop to travel before it bottoms out and stops us. So that's going to stop us a 1/16 inch deep. And let me get my headphones on. We'll make this cut. Now, I noticed earlier when you make this cut, it's a straight cutter and it does a fine job. But earlier when I made a slot, all of the shavings did not come flying out because it's so small, they got jammed in there. So I found that if you just go back, make a second pass, it cleans out the shavings. If you don't, they're in there really hard and you spend a lot of time trying to get them out. All you have to do is one more pass, just stay on the line, on the same line. All right, here we go. Bring it up. All right, easy peasy. All right, so we'll dust that out. And let's get our fence out of the way. Look at that. It's a nice clean cut. But we want to get size our material to fit in there just like that, okay? So to do that, we're gonna just cut our own. And what I did, I just jump-started us and ripped a piece of, this is some soft, I believe this is soft maple. The word soft is used in comparison to hard maple. Okay, it's not actually soft, it's quite hard. It's harder than cherry. It's a pretty hard wood, but it just has a little lighter weight, and it tends to be less expensive than hard maple when you go buy it. And soft is typically where you see the best curly maple. It's a nice wood. So I had some straight grain, non-figured, and just ripped off a piece, and I just sized it to 3/8 of an inch thick. So I'm getting these small lines, so I'll be able to actually get 2 lines out of just one little rip here, and then I'll rip this further into 2, 1 on each side, because I've got this edge is jointed, and these sides are nice and cleaned down and smooth, dressed as well. So to make this, the lines out of this, we want to go over to the bandsaw and rip away. So let's get our stuff for that. I'm going to use this, and let's see. Yeah, that's all I need, my rule. What we're going to do is set the fence on our bandsaw. Now, with the bandsaw, we're going to leave a rough cut, a little kind of ragged edge from the bandsaw. It's not it's pretty smooth, but not perfectly. So we're going to actually hand plane these to thickness accurately, right to 1/16 of an inch. And so in order to do that, we want to set the saw so we're just not having to hand plane too much off. So we'll set it a little heavy of a 1/16. And I'm going to do that by using this. I showed this once before when we were talking about making line inlay. It was a little heavier out of ebony. But what we do is you just want a piece of plywood. You could use MDF, 1/4 inch or whatever. This is a piece of 1/2 inch Baltic, which is really nice for this. And so what I'm going to do is set the fence just a little over 1/16. It might take a little trial and error, but I'm going to pretend like I do it on the first time. Okay, so let's just make a star cut. Now this plywood is to create a 0 clearance slot. You see the little slot in this inlay, and that invariably your band blade, maybe when one breaks or when it wanders a little bit, it's going to gouge out that slot wider. We don't want to run our fine stock right on the table. We've got a gap here. And so by making a 0 clearance, we create an environment of precision. So let's go ahead and do that. Check it. Okay. So just very quickly, you noticed I first started, I sawed lightly into our 0 clearance table and measured it. So I was measuring the width of the stick we're cutting, that little stick in there. And it's quite thin, but I just wanted it to be slightly proud of the 1/16 of an inch, so we don't have to plane a ton off. Okay, so That's what it is. It's like a 64th, maybe a touch more. And I locked it in there. Now, you would do that for whatever thickness line you're after. You know, you might be trying to make a 32nd thick line. And that's getting down there. You know, you got to have good texture material to get that thin. But you can do it with a finely set plane. But here, we're going to stop there. So now that it's set there, I've got my stock ready to go. It's about 3/8. You'll see how this gets us to in a second. So the first thing we're going to do is run it through here. And we'll run it straight through. And what we'll end up doing is getting a very thin piece ripped off. It'll be a little over a 1/16 by 3/8. Then we're going to take that piece and run it through on both edges. So we'll end up with a square piece of stringing that's approximately a 1/16 inch square. Okay. Now this is enough material to make a lot of strings, right? This piece here is 30 inches long. A lot of times when you buy it, it's 36 and it comes in a tube. And they're all wrapped together with against a piece of wood so they don't break in shipment. And you know, if you got a lot to do, maybe you wouldn't want to do this way. Now, I don't always do it this way. I do rip them like this, but then to get them to thickness, to be honest, most times I run them through my drum sander. It's way easier. But if you don't have a drum sander and you're not doing many, this is pretty cool. I have used this technique in a number of cases, and it's a lot of fun. It feels more like you're an artisan. You're in the craft. You're going deep. All right, so here we go. We're gonna hit this, turn on our dust collector. Here we go. One more. Woo! Look at that. These are quite close to a 16th. I could have set them a little heavier, but you'll see it does save you a little time if you get it just right. That's where setup is a little bit key. So we need to create a guide for this hand planing. If we're going to plane it to a 1/16 of an inch, we need a little guidance. And so I'm going to just use some of this stock here. This is some of that special thickness veneer that I've shown you once or twice. You can get it from veneer shops like Certainly Wood. They have regular veneer, and then if you look in the back, they have special thicknesses. And you can get a variety of woods, not as many as their whole menu, but there are a reduced amount in interesting thicknesses, which can save you a lot of time. If you're doing a lamination, you don't have to resaw your own. You can buy it thicknessed. And they had this 1/16 of an inch, and I like that. In certain cases, I've used it for laminating or whatever. And the poplar, it's 1/16 of an inch thick, and it's less expensive because it's usually a back or an interior thing. So I'm just gonna cut this apart. Rather than going over to a saw, let's just grab the Japanese saw. It's kind of thin, so it's kind of awkward to hold. So now I've just got the two halves, and this is like a thickness gauge. So if I bring this over like just a piece of MDF or something, and if I just glue these down, I would just put a little glue on here and here, and then some type of caul that we can put on top there and clamp it down. So then we'll end up with these two thickness pieces of material at parallel to each other. And I usually leave a wider gap than the stock I'm going to be working with. So up to like 1/4 inch, because you might want to use this again, and you can use it for wider lines too. You could make up to 1/4 inch wide using this little gauge. So this gauge is going to allow me to cut a plane exactly 1/16 of an inch thick, because the block plane that we're using will not be cutting into this. We're going to hold the block plane stationary when we get to it and pull the line through, and you'll see that happen. Now, rather than going through the whole glue up, I've already done it on the other side. So here it is. That exact setup was glued down earlier, and in case you're wondering, you see the walnut over here. This is the same setup, except it's 3/32 thick. So this is ready to go. You know, you could label these. This is my 1/16 and my 3/32 to pull and make my stringing. All right, so I'm gonna just clamp this down. Let's just make a little stringing. Hopefully this grain is fairly compliant. If you want to try to get really straight grain because you're dealing with a thin piece. If the grain is running out, you'll have a hard time doing this because it's going to want to keep breaking. So I usually work with 2 block planes. This one I always keep a little heavier set. I don't think I'm going to need that right now because I'm pretty thin here. And I'm just going to use the Lee Nielsen, which is set finely, you know. And I polished up that edge. Can you see it glistening in the light?
That's so nice.
A little earlier. And little wax on the sole. It's good for the sole. And I am going to use that right now. So what I do is I set it pretty fine, and I bring this has like a sliding sole, like that plate goes forward and back. And what it does, you can open the mouth and then close it. So I close it very close to the thickness of the shaving we'll be cutting. It's a little larger than that. But what that does is that's going to put good pressure on the nose, and it's going to be holding down the line tight down to the table while I pull it through. Then the blade will be cutting it after that, okay? So if I'm holding good pressure there, I can't overcut this. The line is not going to spring up in there and let me cut it thinner. It's going to be pressed to the table with the nose here. And by that pressing it to the table and pulling the line, the 2 16th inch risers on the side act as a guide to let me cut no further than 1/16 of an inch, okay? So let's try it out. Now, this is delicate. You couldn't hand plane this way, but I am going to try to just start it. Okay, I can feel the little roughness of the bandsaw. But now I think, can you get a view where you can see right into the throat here? You're going to see the shaving starting to come. Okay, I'm going to just pull. I'm getting a little dust there because the first pass is just taking off the chatter from the bandsaw. Now we'll start to get shavings. Okay, let's bring it forward again. Grab a hold. I like to wet my fingers.
Oh. Awesome.
There we go. One more, I think. So this one's set fine. If you were thicker, that's where it's nice. Maybe more than one. I can feel it's still higher. So you can feel it right here if it's too plain yet. Okay, here we go. You can hear it. It's nice. You know what I'm going to do before I go any further? Sometimes you'll fumble it. And you never want to fumble. But if you do, then you can't always see where you were. So I'm going to put a pencil mark on the down side, the side that's down on the table. And that will keep me set. I'm just going to check this. It's still a little high of the line. Just for kicks, let's check it with our groove right here. And it's a little tight. See? Won't quite go in. So we know we're close. And let's just set it back and start in again. Okay. It's like making our own little spaghetti. So there are other methods of doing this. I'm just showing you this method where you can actually pull it through like a knife that's mounted to a board. You've probably seen that method, some of you. Here we go. This feels like it's getting really close.
You're pulling with the grain, Tom? Planing with the grain? Or
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, you have to in order. It's so delicate it would break if it was otherwise. All right, so that felt pretty close. Yeah, see, I'm taking micro shavings off there, but it feels good there. I'll double check we're good all the way. Let's just see if we're fitting. I think we're going to fit right in there. It's starting to go. Yeah, it's pressing in tight there. Then it gets tighter. So it tells you exactly where you are, if your stock is accurate. And that's why, getting the hang of it at first and setting up to your thing. Now, when you're getting really close, you don't want to push the plane because you'll feel yourself cutting into your gauge sides. But here we go. I'm just going to
Were you focused, Tom? Mark's curious that you need to make sure the plane blade is perfectly straight.
Not really. I'm holding it a bit askew.
But I think he means like when you've sharpened it, maybe.
Oh, yeah. You really want to adjust your plane so that, you've got a nice true, you've got to adjust it to the sole of your plane really well. Wow, look at that. So we probably could have used the more aggressive plane there. But
what about glue thickness?
That feels pretty nice.
Grant's asking what you allow for glue thickness.
Well, you just want it to go in relatively easily. Let's see how it is here. Okay, that's it right there.
Nice.
So that goes in relatively easily, see, with no play. And you'll get it in there with the glue. Let's just glue this line in. Why not? We've got our glue bottle. So look how fast and easy that was. Now, the more you do, the less time you spend and the better you get kind of dialed into the feel and when you arrive and how to hold things, when you're sharp enough, when your blade is skewed, all that stuff is just like everything we do in woodworking. It's a kind of an acquired sensitivity, with each phase. So it just happens by doing. So you just got to get the reps in sometimes, and you'll find that you're on top of your game before you know it. I don't know if I wore that nozzle out cleaning the glue off, but it's a little maybe. I'm just going to clean that glue off the side. Trying to remember how Garrett did his glue.
Contact lens bottle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've used those too. So let's just push it in there. Now you just want to, you can roll it in there with a burnishing tool, or I'll just use the head of a hammer. All right, so there, we wiped it down, and you can see how nice the contrast looks. But that fast, you're ready to clean it up. So let's just take our plane now, and if we rest it, we're resting the body of the plane here on the board. It's sitting right up on the line. So you're not worried. Watch how this comes to life. That line just brightens up and jumps out at you as we get some of that off. Now this isn't even the whitest wood. If we had holly or satin wood or something like that, look at this. We're going to have to take a shaving.
Yeah, Robert's asking how you're going to protect the string color when you finish it.
Yeah, I'm not going to finish it, Robert.
In someone else.
No, actually, yeah, there's a lot of questions about that. It's almost like testing a finish. You know, if you can tolerate a little amber, then this maple is going to go a little amber anyway, you know. But I usually just use clear shellac or something on traditional furniture. So I wouldn't, it's a light color. You could use as blonde, as refined as you can get it. Hey, that was fun. I mean, that was a nice little excursion into making our own stringing. I hope you try it sometime. It's a super enjoyable way to pass a Saturday. Or add just a small detail to a piece rather than setting up all the machines. Once again, if you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing, liking, sharing, and also check out the website at epicwoodworking.com. All the news is going on. Check that out over there, and be sure again to get on the mailing list. So thank you on behalf of the camera lady and myself for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next time